Welcome everybody. Nice to see everybody. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Hanging in there? Perfect. Okay. I'd like to open the meeting for the December 7th Monroe County Commissioners Compensation Policy Commission. We'll now come to order. Will the clerk please do the roll call?
Mr. Fisher?
Glad to be here and present.
Mr. Haldo?
Present.
Chairman Hurlbut?
Here.
Mr. Kraus?
Present.
Legislator Morrell? Mr. Moya?
Present.
Mr. Putta?
Here. Okay. The clerk has provided the commission with a copy of the draft minutes from the last meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So move.
I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. Thank you very much. Were there any other forms of correspondence received by your office, Ms. Slocum?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there were 2 items that were delivered to each office today, and then a member of the public is present, and I have a 3rd item to distribute.
All right. The next item is the discussion and approval of the recommendation. Thank you, Brett, for sending out this draft. I understand it's like 86 pages, 96 pages. And it is the draft of the proposal that are based on our discussion at the November 30th meeting.
The only thing, just so you know, the only thing added was the question. Okay. That just got added there.
All right, so before we begin the discussion on the draft report, I'd like to remind the commission that once we have made final recommendations, it is the prerogative of each member to submit a report with alternate recommendations if they so desire. I hope you've all had time to review this document. I know a lot of the included recommendations were discussed at length at our last meeting. Does anyone have any comments on this draft as presented?
I do.
Yes?
Under principles, under mission and principles, the final principle reads, our recommendation must provide for a salary commensurate to the position and must provide incentives to recruit the best candidates for Monroe County Sheriff. Later on in the recommendations, it's recommended that any new sheriff who comes in make $128,000 and some change, which is an $8,000 decrease. Can that be explained away? How does that incentivize someone to run against the current sheriff?
I have no idea what you're talking about. That has to do with pay grades. We're not, this is for this individual sheriff. We're not talking about.
What's for the office?
Well, Bob, you say in the principles it's for the office and not this particular sheriff, so which is it?
Well, no, actually, it is for this particular sheriff because he hasn't had an adequate pay increase. And the last one he got was 2011.
But the recommendation is for the future, which is explicitly in there because it's asking the legislature, recommending that the legislature adopt it for the future.
Well, I think in recommendations it includes the pay scale.
Right, the pay
There's a
scale
sliding
starts
scale.
out- Pardon me?
There's a sliding scale.
It starts out at what number, according to the chairman?
It's in the report, Bob.
Yeah.
It's $128,000 and some change.
And is that an increase or decrease from where it is right now?
It's a decrease.
Well, it's a lower number. It's a lower number than the sheriff's making. Is that right?
That he's making now, but he's also, this is his 4th time being elected as sheriff. So what's your point?
My point is that it doesn't incentivize anyone to run for the office, as was made so abundantly clear last time, is the purpose of this commission.
Okay.
Is my logic not being followed by the chairman?
I understand your logic, I just don't necessarily agree with you. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, we're talking about this particular sheriff's pay increase.
Then why do we have a step from A to L? What does that accomplish if it's only for this sheriff and he's going to be brought in at letter G, which I of course have a question about because that's unclear why that's the case.
But you want to take a stab at that?
The scale is basically based on a 3% increase. The recommendation was that the number came in as at the 149 was the recommendation that was given by the commission. The scale anticipates, based on his current rate of pay at step C on the chart, it anticipates 3% raises along the route. If you're asking why it goes from a low end to a high end, the intent was that they'd be able to have like a graduated scale, so that a person who is serving in a long-term care has the ability to continue to make more.
But how does that meet the principle or the mission that was laid out to incentivize people to run for this office? If the idea is that this sheriff doesn't make enough money, because that's what I'm kind of hearing, that's what the chairman said, that he hasn't had an increase in a while. If the idea is to increase his pay, why wouldn't we increase it for the office going forward?
Well, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, the chart anticipates, like, so when we looked at the scales throughout the county, we looked at other sheriffs, what the current scale was within the sheriff's department. This report actually identifies that there's, if the undersheriff were to run, it would be a $6,000 rate.
But that's one person.
Correct, I'm using it as an example. And I'm just trying to say that the concept is to have it be competitive without being totally a one-size-fits-all. Essentially, like saying, like, this is what all sheriffs should be paid for all time. It anticipates a scale that has a low end, that is, if the person continues to stay, and the voters, it also says in the report that if the voters determine that they want to stay, that they want to keep that person, that they would keep getting a raise.
Well, that issue is easily answered by if the charter's followed and there's a commission, right, then they can look at those raises in time. All right, so it's a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. The question that Mr. Moy has and that we have is, and again, we may or may not agree that the sheriff needs a raise and that there should be something here, but according to your scale, an incoming sheriff, like say Bob runs against Pat O'Flynn and he wins, he gets $128,000 a year. How does that incentivize Bob to run for sheriff? How does that incentivize, like say you have a qualified candidate, let us just say someone like the chief of police from the town of Gates wants to run for sheriff. Why would he do that to start at $128,000?
Well, you're not going to make what the current sheriff makes if you're a brand new sheriff. I mean, that's just sort of.
Well, why not?
Well, why should you?
Well, let me ask you a question. What other elected officials do we have in Monroe County that started a lower wage than the ones that are making a particular wage now? For instance, whether it's a county legislator, the county executive, or the county clerk, which of those offices in Monroe County starts at a lower wage than the wage of the office holder, the current office holder?
Well, we're here to address strictly and only the fact of the matter is that our particular sheriff isn't making what he should be. And even though that Joe Morelli disagrees with that, and you pointed out very distinctly at the last meeting that you think that he should either stay the same or go down, the fact of the matter is, we were just to look at his salary, the sheriff's salary. We are not here to look at the county exec, the clerk, anybody else.
So,
That's it.
If I may, Bob, I understand that,
So,
but
that's it.
well, Bob, I understand that, but I am talking about the sheriff, and this is the principle in a draft, which according to the agenda is going to be approved tonight, and according to this is going to be approved. So, but we're just kind of wondering, like, what is the incentive to somebody to run? And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, this scale is lower than sheriff makes now before a salary increase, which I believe that he should have. What's the incentive to somebody to run for sheriff at such a low pay?
That's not up for us to
But
decide.
that's your principle, Bob.
That's the principle.
You want to scratch this principle?
I'm not going to scratch the principle. What we're talking about is.
I'll tell you, I make a motion that because your pay scale doesn't fit the principle, and it's illogical that they both be in there. There should be a motion on the table that we would either need to change the scale or we need to take this principle out.
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment.
Yeah.
An incoming sheriff.
Sir, I made a motion. Which is second.
Incoming sheriff, we're not done with discussion.
The motion is
An incoming
denied.
sheriff.
You can't
You
deny
can't
it.
deny your motion, I had a
Incoming
conversation
sheriff,
about something that's put on
Mr.
your
Chairman,
head.
would have a sliding
We
scale.
started our conversation first.
Come on, Bob.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just commenting, an incoming sheriff would have a sliding scale. The current sheriff does not have that. This would be a tremendous advantage for the same thing, to have an established sliding scale.
You know, for the sake of discussion, I may or may not agree with that if we had the evidence to show that.
Sliding scale.
But the question, right.
It's not a
the
sliding scale,
question-
you're using the wrong
yeah,
vocabulary.
The question, it's a
Oh, you're an
schedule.
expert?
Yes, I'm an expert.
That's
Well, actually is,
It's not
but
a sliding scale, it's a step increase.
All right.
the question is,
Those are
No.
different things.
We're done, discussion's over.
well, the question is, but
Moving on.
your scale starts at 128,000. The question is still
Established
open.
scale.
About the
What does it
previous
start at?
minutes.
It's an established, the current sheriff has not been.
So what does your
has
scale
not
start at?
experienced this,
What does your
yeah.
scale start
That's why we
at?
have it in the.
Yeah, what does it start at?
in the,
You have it right there. What does it start at? 128 what?
We're
I
done.
have a question about the current sheriff. I have a question about.
Jamie, are we going to be including the minutes from last meeting, and also this one in the final report?
Yes, I'll provide them.
Okay, great.
So is it
Is there-
true that our motion is
is there an-
denied from being voted upon?
No, we can vote on your motion, go ahead.
Oh, I thought you denied our motion.
I denied it.
Denied our motion.
I denied it while there was a discussion going on. Now, you want to bring it up again? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, it was started before the other discussion
Go ahead.
began.
Well, yeah, I'll make a motion that if.
Fine. Is there a second?
Well, he didn't get his motion out. I don't know what I'm seconding, sir.
That we, for the sake of consistency, either we eliminate the principal or we change the scale.
I second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Opposed? Denied. Done.
I
Okay.
have a question about the current sheriff. It was just represented to me that he would begin at letter C on the scale. Is that correct?
This is current, this is current.
That's his current amount. And then, but it says on page 9 that if he ran for re-election in 2017 and was successful, he would begin at step G. Where is step?
149. It's going to go to 149.
How does- how
Are you
does-
asking me to clarify or?
What is the timeline for going up in steps? Is it each election?
No, it's each year.
It's here.
That's what it says in the recommendation.
So if he's been the sheriff, correct me if I'm wrong, since 2001, is that correct? Then why wouldn't he be off this chart and making $174,000?
Because that's not the way we decided how to do it.
What was the basis, what was the thinking and the reasoning behind it?
It's so much per year. Because
How did you, Bob, how did you decide that? How did you come up
He
with
didn't receive
that?
any increases for what, 2004 to what? 11. 11 was the last one. He's been elected 4 times.
We're just wondering, is there like a method to this?
Yeah.
What would that
It's
be?
in there. It's in the chart. Read
No,
it.
there's charts in there, and there's these
Read
principles.
it.
I read the chart.
I did read it,
Yeah.
but there's no explanation of how you arrived at this figure. How did you come up with that?
Brett, you want to explain it to him?
So this essentially, this chart was worked out on 3% increase. That was based on the premise made by Mr. Fisher, who recommended the 149 number to happen in 27.
But how is it decided that he would start off at this number and not at the 174 number for a person of requisite experience as we're talking about?
It was based on the CPI numbers that came out when we were doing when the commission asked for the recommendations of the CPI numbers. Consumer price index put us around 150, 148, 150. The CPI number is 150. The Social Security cost of living adjustment was at 148. And this puts us in between those numbers for 2017. So basically, puts us in the right place for where the numbers were showing us. And then the chart goes into effect following that number, so that it becomes a definitive step.
But if there's always supposed to be a policy commission in the city, why do we need to take caution for the next 12 years of the office?
Well, as we said before, for the 100th time, this particular commission was to look at this particular salary, and that's what we did. And the fact that he didn't get increases on a yearly basis affected his pay scale, so that's why he's at 136, and this commission is recommending to go to 149, and it's in here. So I suggest you read it.
Hey, Bob, I've read it, and what I'm good with is,
Just
it's
take
like,
it.
let us say, like, no, Bob, so what if we use your reasoning, all right, that there was a pay, which I agree with, that the office of sheriff should get, and that because there was no commission per the county charter, all right, that we've run into this sticker shock thing, that we get the sheriff up to this $149,000 figure. It still leaves open the question, how do you then justify a new sheriff making like $20,000 less?
You know what, if another commission wants to be formed to take a look at that, fine, that's not our job, and we're not going to do it.
But this is our report, Bob.
Well, fine, put it in, if you want to put in an alternate report, go ahead.
I have something that I'd like to discuss on page 6. It says that we met over a period of 1 month. This is the 19th day since our first meeting, so it's not a month. It's the 19th day.
Fine.
Look,
You know, this is not, look at, if you really want to get into this at the next legislative meeting, go ahead.
No, am I inconveniencing you by trying to make this report?
Bob, you almost sounds like the fix is in. You know, Bob, that, you know, I just want to make one thing. I've been on a lot of these compensation committees. I've been involved in government. You know, I've never been on a compensation committee, whether it's nonprofit, private sector, or the government, that has been run like this, where there's been no discussion, where even the basics, I mean, even my education teaches me in this thing. The first thing you do is you look at qualifications, job description, and interview of the person in the office. We've done none of that.
Well, we already gone through
Excuse me, we get an agenda today that tells us the agenda item is to approve this. We've had no discussion of it. When we do discuss it, you want to cut people
Oh,
off.
because your question, you keep repeating the same questions from every single meeting we've already had.
No, well, Bob, that can't be because we didn't have this, we didn't have this report. That can't be.
All right, what else do you want to
I have
ask?
another question.
Sure, go ahead.
You know, if we're only looking at Sheriff Patrick O'Flynn's salary, which the chairman keeps repeating, not the office of the sheriff, but only Sheriff Patrick O'Flynn, this seems like simply a monetary gift to Mr. O'Flynn that's going to keep increasing each year. Not only that, not only a monetary gift, but a political gift, because it's going to disincentivize people from running against him in another campaign in the future.
Well, that's your opinion.
It certainly is my opinion. That's what I'm here to express.
Fine.
It certainly seems to set up a system where the more you win, the more you make. I mean, that just doesn't seem to so, and in regards to that, how was the decision made to apply County Law 201 to this position? Because that's typically a law that would be applied to, say, things like highway supervisors. How was the decision made to apply that to this position? Did you make that, Mr. Chair, I was wondering, did you make that decision? Who decided, who came up with that idea? Because I'd like to ask how that decision was made.
I don't know how it was made.
Do you know of any other sheriffs for which County Law 201 applies?
I don't know what County 201 wanted it is.
Bob, it's in your report. Do you want me to point out, you asked to read the report. Here, let me show you, I'm right next to
Who
you.
wrote this report?
Yeah, who wrote this report, Bob?
Okay, boys and girls, we're going to move on. You're just trying to
Find out who wrote the
train
report.
wreck it.
Find out who
I'm not
wrote the
doing it.
report.
All right, I'm moving ahead with this report. I'd like to have a motion to accept the report as is.
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Kraus. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Abstain.
I'm abstaining based on my
Abstain.
previous
Can I answer this? I have a big question. Bob, here it is, right above your signature.
Report's done. Thank you. Meeting's now concluded. I thank you for everybody and their
Are you going to make a
participation.
motion to adjourn the meeting?
No, it's over. Done. Thank you.
I think it was over about 19 days ago.